Welcome to another episode of Meet the Local Funeral Home Owner. Today we are traveling all the way to Houston, Texas. Now, I want you to understand, this time, Houston, we don't have a problem. I'm going to introduce you to one of our generals in the business. His name is Alan Dave. Welcome, Mr. Dave. How are you today, sir?
Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
Oh, it's the best day of my life, Mr. Dave. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity and privilege to come all the way to Houston, Texas, to actually get to speak to someone who is a trailblazer in our profession. So the first question I have for you today is this: what actually got you into the funeral and cemetery profession? How did you come to it? What is the reason why you even decided to be an owner? How did you get into this profession?
Well, actually, I came from the service industry, but the wedding industry, and so I produce wedding shows, and we had produce about 300 weddings per year, weddings and funerals body, but the ceremonial component of planning services, I thought that I can execute very well. I saw a lot of bad in my market, and my mother had a death of her best friend's mother, and she had a bad experience, and I wanted to make sure that she never faced another bad experience. And that's how I entered the market, because of a bad experience.
Wow, excellent, excellent. So I want to make sure that you and I are on the same page here. So how much is the what we would say both types of businesses? You talk about the wedding profession, and now you're in the funeral profession. How much of those have parallel lines? How much of that's parallel in meeting the customer's needs?
Well, actually, as far as the wedding side of the business and the funeral side of the business have so many similarities. For example, we go to the courthouse for death certificates. We go to the courthouse for marriage license. We're dealing with the same floors that's making beautiful wedding bouquets. And then we're dealing with the same families that's doing the casket sprays from our floor standpoint. Our livery service, our limousines can be used in both the wedding side of the business as well as the funeral side. Ministers, pastors, rabbis, priests are all conducting professional services on the wedding side. So I always tell people here, just say at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, we have a casket in the center of the church. And then at 6 p.m., we have a couple in the same place. And so the transition was pretty easy for me to make. And I really have had a wonderful time making this transition into from the wedding side of the business to the death here.
Well, that's excellent, excellent. Right now, obviously, you guys know when you go live, we have an opportunity to have some technical difficulties, but that's part of going live and having a good internet connection. You always want to make sure you have that. Make sure that you don't get stuck in your local market, especially in your funeral home and things of that nature. So, knowing that, like you said, the funeral and the weddings have a lot of similarities. What are some of the ways that you have as a funeral home owner now? What are some of the ways that you attract families to your business, both before death occurs and at the time, your immediate need?
Well, I know we're having some technical difficulties, but we're going to work through this, and we're going to make this a great interview as best as we possibly can. But as far as my transition is being able to service the families as best as possible, the number one thing you have to do is you have to listen to the family's needs. What are they requesting? What's unique and what's different? There are no two funerals that are the same, similar to there's no two weddings are the same. So what you want to do is you just really want to talk to the client, and you want to talk to the families. You want to get the detail. What I always talked about is discovering the essence of one's life, finding out as much as you possibly can about that individual. And once you do that, then you can plan a professional ceremony around them. But you have to get the facts. You got to know the family. A lot of times when it comes down to planning the funeral itself is that I like to know as much as I possibly can versus walking in with pen and paper and a contract and begin to go through those details. I like to sit around in our living room and really talk about what's available, what's not available, what options that they have, what they can do, and I want to give them every option that they possibly can have in order to have the opportunity to create a meaningful celebration for their lives.
Oh, excellent. That's very good. So I like the fact that you said celebration of life, paralleling that with the wedding, people are celebrating, and now you're sitting down with the family and you're celebrating their loved one, and we honor their loved one. But one of the things that I like to share with funeral home owners and cemetery people, when we have the opportunity to honor a life in our firms, it's a beautiful thing. And when a family entrusts their loved one to our profession, into your particular firm, what are some of the things that a family would receive from your professional staff, from your services, from your facilities? What are some of the things that families going to receive by using Allen Dave mortuaries and cemeteries?
Well, one of the things is for us after discovering what type of services that they want, then it's up to us to give them those options. Number one, when they ask, would you like to have a traditional funeral followed by burial? Would you like to have a traditional funeral followed by cremation, a memorial service, or would you like to have a direct cremation? We begin from those four. One of the things I'm big on is presentation. No matter how much money they spend, whether it's extravagant or to simplicity, is to make sure that the presentation is beautiful and the representation of their life is celebrated in the very best of professional image. One of the things is that, when people come into the funeral home themselves, no one wants to be here. So what we want to do is we want to give them all of their options. So you want to make sure that you are able to explain all of your different levels of service to them. It's more than just merchandise themselves. Sure, we sell caskets and we have urns and we have cemetery property with mostly, headstones and outer burial containers and vaults. But the most important thing is we want to do is to create the celebration, the type of funeral program that they want. One of the things that's been very successful for us during this pandemic time is our online funeral arrangement. We've been working on this for about 5 years, and we went live making online funeral arrangements without being into the funeral home about 2 years ago. So we were not caught off guard with this pandemic. So most of our families were already creating their services online. So that's been one of the greatest advantages at this particular point. We've kept families safe at home and not being able to have to come into the funeral home during these limited times. So I think that's the technology. Technology is most important. And that's the part that I think that I've been maybe a little ahead of the curve, because all of the things that you have introduced to me, Keith, we signed on and we've been a part of your products for many years, and it's really worked out to our advantage. And one of the things about it, when Keith first turned on his online registry and everything to us, it was so powerful that I had to call Keith and say, Keith, turn it off. It's too powerful. We can't follow up with the families fast enough. And so I had to bring in more staff in order to be able to understand the technology. So when you're hiring funeral directors and you're hiring administrators and everything today, you have to hire people that have technology background, because families are doing things in the convenience of their cellular phones. When you get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, they may be at the hospital on their cellular phone, and as much information that they can get, we have to give it to them. So technology is very, very important to the death care industry.
Well, thank you very much. I think that's very important. That's why I said at the beginning that you are a trailblazer. You are an early adapter. You chose to go towards the technology side, which is very important. We have within the funeral home profession, the cemetery profession, we have impact groups. And one of those impact groups that we talk about is the arrangement conference. So when families first come in and sit down, well, now we have to do that arrangement conference virtually. If you're not prepared to do it on Skype or by FaceTime or even on some other platform, because now families, they can't come in with social distancing on a regular basis, but now you can still do it through the arrangement conference. Another impact group is the viewing or visitation. But you can also choose to do that through having it live streamed. Now, one of the things I want to talk to you about live streaming is there's different platforms. And I know that a lot of people use Facebook to live stream. Some people are using Zoom and different things to live stream. One of the things that we found out in the last 60 days is that a lot of families don't want everyone to see their service. You know, don't want to be exposed. And Facebook has actually dropped some of the because the music rights and different things of that nature, and they have to put up these are not right. And families don't have the opportunity to leave tributes to their loved one. They don't have opportunity to sign a virtual registry book. So these are some of the things that we have. Also for the service itself, whether the service is going to be at your funeral home, which is another impact group, or they're going to have it at their place of worship. Also, talking to some of our funeral home owners and some of our cemeteries, the interment, where that final resting place is going to be, that point of reference. A lot of families want to see their loved ones laid to rest. You can also live stream the interment, or what we call the committal service. Are you doing any of those types in those 4 areas of impact, from the arrangement conference to the visitation, the service, and also the committal? Are you guys doing any of those there in the Houston market?
Well, we have been videotaping all of the services. Okay, so a part of our packages normally is just to be able to offer photography and video. That's a part of my beginnings. We've been doing that since the beginning. As far as, because that was what I was doing in the wedding industry. So videography and photography was always a part of the Allendale brand. And so we started our firm in 2003. And so currently the majority of our family selected option. Now, by us doing this, then we've been able to separate our technology from private to Facebook Live. Again, as far as the Facebook Live format has created some obstacles, especially when there's music that's being played that belongs to another artist and that's muted. So having technology where you can do these things and provide those type of services, so the selected number of people would like to see the services can be rendered. So you're going to have to embrace technology. And Keith, and one of the things that you've been doing has been offering those type of services to all of the funeral homes. And over the course of the last 2 months, you had to ramp up very fast, because there were many funeral homes that never thought about technology in doing this. And so as we build our funeral homes, we have to bring technologies in all of the components. Facebook Live is probably the easiest way that most people have been doing it. But as you begin to go down that road, you get some objections. First of all, with families may not want the entire universe to see their funeral. And then at the same time, they by having a system in place where they can only show the funeral to a selected few, would give the family more control, and they feel a little bit better at that. But taking taking the camera to the funeral home, to the church, and to the cemetery has definitely helped out with many people to be able to attend services in this difficult time. Now we have moved from 10 people and we're back up to 50 people at our funeral home that we're through the space. We've just separated our chairs and everything within our chapel, but we are getting more people in. But it was very, very difficult when you had to allow only 10 people to to come in and see a service. So those are very challenging. Most of the families rejected this because that's their mother. And then what about the families that had several children, 8, 9, 10 children, grandchildren, husband and wife. So it was a very, very challenging time. So, but the technology has definitely made it a little easier for us.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So because we are in a relationship business, and you talk about families and they cannot come in, we were down to 10, and now some of the restrictions are being lifted. And now you said you're actually creating more space. Are you actually social distancing all your chairs now in your chapels?
Yes, I am. What we're doing is for us, main chapel that we have for visitations is 150 people. So we're using 33 and a third. So we just only allowed 50 seats in that 150 chapel. So what we're doing is at each one of our chapels and each one of our locations that we go to, we're just using that rule of thumb. Okay, if it's seated, 250 people, then we're going up to, 75 people, and just using that as a rule of thumb, 1/3.
Okay. Now you said other locations. Now why don't you share with the group, Facebook, Periscope, and share with them your different locations and where is this brand, Allen Day brand, where are you located?
Well, the Allen Day brand is pretty much started out in Houston, Texas, and I've expanded out to Brenham, Texas, which is about 60 miles from Houston. And then we went to 30 miles north of Brenham to a city called Caldwell, Texas. And then we go to Carthage, Texas, which is in northeast Texas. So it's 3 funeral homes, 1 cemetery, and 1 crematory. That's where I am in 2020. But prior to 2020 and the reorganization and changes that we've made in the divestment of properties in leadership roles, my total in 2019 was a total of 11 funeral homes, 10 cemeteries, and 2 crematoriums. But the Allen Day brand is 3 funeral homes, 1 cemetery, 1 crematorium. That's what we have, and that's what we're offering to the state of Texas.
Okay. So understanding everything you're talking about there, you are a full service funeral home. Is that correct? Full service funeral home,
Oh, yeah.
full service cremation, crematory, and you also have a full service cemetery. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct here. As far as full service, I don't know any. Wait a minute. When you use the word full time, when you're in the death care business, you have to be full time because it's a 24 hours, 7 days, 365 days. You don't get holidays off. You don't get evenings off. You don't get anything. You have to be available to help these families whenever the call comes in. And one thing about it, though, we know death is never convenient, Keith. It's never convenient. We just have to get in there. We have to do everything we possibly can in order to help these people.
Okay, so let's talk about the cremation and the crematory. What are some of the specialty things you do for your cremation families, knowing that, to my knowledge, you have your own crematory there in Houston. It is your own. You guys own it, operate it. Is it just for your families, or is it also for outside services?
Well, no, actually, as far as with my crematory is pretty much it's private. It's only for my families. I'm not a trade crematorium. So what we try to and we use that to our advantage because when we're talking with our families and everything, we tell them that that we have a private crematorium. We're not a part of the trade, and that's been one of my advantages. And so, with the families go to our online arrangement conference. They talk to us live, or they do it in person. That's one of the things that we speak about. Making an investment into the crematorium business in 2015 was substantial. And not only do I have the human crematory, I have also the pet crematorium. So I have both humans and pets. So I'm making it work both ways from that standpoint. So working and serving our families, we provide expedited cremation or non-expedited cremations based upon what their needs are. We do have a couple of different price points based upon an expedited service and a non-expedited service. And then also we have our discount brand to be able to help the families that just simply want direct cremation at its lowest possible cost. So we have full service cremation as well as the discounted. And so the cremationtribute.com is our discount brand. The Allen Day Funeral Home is our core business. And so we only offer the discount for the at-need side of the business. Our pre-arranged funerals and our pre-need side of the business, we use pretty much the full pricing because we never know when a death is going to occur and what those price points would be. So we protect ourselves by not discounting for pre-arranged funerals in advance.
Excellent, excellent. So let me make sure I heard you correctly. You don't only have a crematory for humans, you also have a crematory for the little furry four-legged creatures. Is that
Hey,
correct?
I'm going to tell you here, the name of our pet crematorium operation is Seventh Heaven Pet Crematorium. That's the name
Seven
of it,
heaven.
Seventh Heaven Pet Crematorium. And so, and we really kind of been slow rolling that side of the business out. The majority of the families come to us is because of a relationship they already had with the Allen Dave brand. So I thought I wanted to keep the two separate, but what we're finding is that and I just go back to my wedding market. In my first year of business, the wedding brides that I had served throughout, nearly 20 years of business are the ones who helped me succeed my first year of business, because that was my target and that's why I marketed to. And so going from the wedding to the funeral home side of the business, then we built a brand and a base with the Allen Dave brand. And so when the pet operation came into it, we thought we would have to keep it separate. But what we're doing is we're actually conducting pet crematoriums for the brand, for the Allen Dave brand. So they all commingle together. So you have to let those families know that you have human cremation as well as pet cremation. And so the pet side of the business is phenomenal. It's great. I'm learning still within that area here, but what we do is private cremations for the individual pet, no communal cremations, and that's what the families really like about what we do at the Allen Dave brand and Seventh Health Pet Crematorium.
Excellent, excellent. That's very good. So you've heard it here, Facebook, Periscope, all you on the World Wide Web. You heard it here in Houston, Texas. There is a pet crematory. There's also a human crematory where you, as your family and friends, could access Allen Dave funeral homes and crematory. He also said he has a cemetery. Now, in your cemetery, is there ground burial? Are there lawn crypts, of ground burial mausoleums? Or do you do also, are there cremation gardens and stuff? So do you do all types of burial in your cemetery?
Actually, as far as what the cemetery is, pretty much we have mostly a ground burial. Okay, we do have a mausoleum, and we are planning for the fall of 2020 is to roll out our new cremation garden, because we see cremation being the growth. And so what we want to do is create some beautiful gardens. I'm not going to say that I'm behind schedule there, because I purchased this particular cemetery in 2015, so I'm working it according to the plan. So we're in our 5th year, and so at this particular point here, we have some beautiful design gardens that we're going to be introducing to the marketplace. The most important thing is to make sure that our family service counselors know every option that they're going to have. And so we just finished up with our financials for the first quarter, and also plus April. So we're finished with all 4 months of financials, and we're up 39.4%. So that's substantial, 39.4%. So the people are selecting our brand because of the service options and everything that we're giving to them. But the most important thing that you have to do is to treat the pets just as you would, their mother or their father, because sometimes the pets are with them. Those furry friends are very important. So the cremation side of the business is growing, as well as the pet side. But on the cemetery side is that we just been really trying to look at what's available, what the trends are, what's the affordability, and working with the major manufacturers and being able to create these beautiful designs so we can introduce to the public. The most important thing is a buy-in from our family service counselors, making sure that they understand those options, and then we price them where they are affordable or several price points of entry, and then make sure that those options are explained to a family. Because one of the biggest problems that I find is that with cremation, as cremation grow, there's not a final placement, and we have to get those ashes and those black boxes out of the living room closet. We got to get them into the cemetery so that it'll be a permanent place of remembrance. Creating a permanent place of remembrance is very, very important. And as we create these direct cremations, we still got to keep ceremony. If we don't keep ceremony as a part of our operations, the families are going to devalue what we do. So ceremony has to be in every detail. And so even when the family come in for a direct cremation, how can you tie in ceremonial to a direct cremation? And so there are many ways of doing that.
Okay, that's very good. So if I understand you correctly, and I want to make sure I got this correct, you're saying that the ritual part of our business is still very important, that people still need to have some type of closure. So that ritual of families coming together, still celebrating life, even if it's cremation, and more importantly, having a point of reference. So somebody will have a place where their loved ones laid to rest, whether it's cremation or for a body or it's their pet, they will still have a place where they can go and visit and leave a flower, which I call a lot of people, I call them the resident people. A lot of people have people in their resident. They just happen to be in an urn or in a container. But they're resident people. They don't have a point of reference. Point of reference is actually the final resting place. And that ceremony, that ritual is so important. So I appreciate you bringing that out. Now, you also said something about family service counselors. And I know that a lot of people out there may not know that term because they're used to funeral director, they're used to cemeterian. So family service counselors, I know that you guys do a lot of seminars at your location. I see you on Facebook and I see you doing these seminars for your community and free. These family service counselors you have, what are some of the roles that they do in your brand to help you market Allen Dave Funeral Home?
Well, one of the things that we have to do is we have to get the family service counselors out into the community. First of all, no one wants to talk about death and dying. So you have to create a safe haven for us to be able to have this conversation with the community. So one of the things that we do is we go out and we definitely do conferences with churches and seminars. We do it at the senior living facilities. We do it at the senior apartment. So it's kind of four areas that I kind of look at, and that's going to be hospice. Okay, that's more of the at-need side, making sure that the hospice families are informed of their options. We look at the senior daycare areas, the senior apartments, as well as the nursing homes or senior communities, because they're no longer apartments anymore. But the 55 plus group is who our target, and that's who we try to make sure that they have every option. Because I look at it like this here: when you turn 50 years of age, there's a big organization, national organization that's out there that's letting you know you're getting closer to the end, and that's the AARP. AARP starts sending you out information, and so if you've never been placed on notice, well, they make sure that once you turn 49 years of age. Now, I don't know what national database they have, but they know what everybody's age are, and they definitely use it to their advantage. But the most important thing is that if you begin to prearrange and have the conversation at an earlier point, it becomes very, very important. And so one of the things that I find is for us having the discussion in advance versus having it when a death occurred and they walk into the funeral home and they don't know, what their mom want. The dad wanted, it becomes more difficult. So we were currently, I was looking at, and this is very interesting here because of our financial reporting that we were looking at. Currently in my little organization here, as of April 30th, we had 744 families that have prearranged their services with our firm. And now that's, represented about $6 million in revenue in the future that we're going to have. But I have been slowly rolling that out. But very, very important is that every family or every funeral home develop a sound pre-need department of family service counselors. And you can't have the funeral directors and the family service counselors doing the same role. It's two different complete organizations. So it's so the funeral home, the cemetery, the crematory, these are three different groups of people, and you can't have one person doing that one job. And I think that's where I failed at in my earlier years, is trying to give too many assignments to one person. The funeral director can't sell and service and be available 24 hours, 7 days a week to take care of those families. There's too much overload. So what you have to do is that I think every funeral home should be able to have several funeral service counselors available to be able to assist these families. Now, I do have a model for my funeral homes, and mine is one funeral director per 150 death calls. So, for example, if one of my firms is doing 300 death calls, it's only two funeral directors that's needed to be able to handle that. That allows them to be able to conduct 3 services per week. But on the family service side, pretty much, I think you need 2 to 1. So for every funeral director, I think you need 2 to 3 family service counselors out in the field, talking with all of the consumers, being at the churches, being at the civic organizations, being within the community, sharing your story. That's going to be very important there. So the family service counselors, I think, is some of the most important roles of securing business of the future for the funeral homes.
Wow. That right there was a great presentation of what it means to have a different staff. Like you said, everybody can't do the same role, but having that public relation group, that people that can go out, those family service counselors in the community, having the seminars in different places, like you said, hospice, and going to the senior facility, going to the senior complexes. So Allendale brand is not only dealing with people at the time of death occurs, you're out in the community helping people and in advance. Now, if I heard you correctly, over 700 pre-arrangements to date. Now, I want to make sure that I understand that correctly, because when we go to conferences, I always ask owners of both funeral homes and cemeteries and crematories, how many cases have you done this year? And they always tell me, well, we've done 100 cases, we've done 50, but they're always only talking to me about the at need time.
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about caseload, like you just said, you're working on your future. So you have 700 plus pre-arrangements already in your portfolio.
That's
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'm going to say, Keith, but the thing about it, though, is we did the financial evaluation of it, and we looked at our advertising and promotional dollars that we spent. And so currently I spend about 12% of my revenues in advertising. And so most of and now I'm thinking about pushing that maybe up to about 15%. Okay. To attract the families to the firm so that we can have more advanced planning services. So I think that the pre-arrangement side of the business is very unique, and everybody may not understand it. And I didn't understand it because, remember, I'm not from the industry. A lot of this I had to learn, and I always felt that I was moving a little bit too slow. But the lights are on. Okay, arranging funerals in advance not only make my job easier as a funeral director, okay, and all of our funeral directors, but it also makes it more comforting for the families to be able to walk into the funeral home with their pre-arrangement already in place. And then all we have to do is execute it and make a few changes that they may want as from a personalization standpoint. But I just find that to be very, very key. And so now, this is kind of my model here. So if you are a funeral home and you have 100 at-need death calls, okay, I think that you should have 150 pre-need arrangements in order to grow your firm. Okay, the minimum you should be doing is if you have 100 at-need calls, you should have 100 pre-need calls. That just keeps you in the game. But for you to really grow your firm, you need to get up to 1.25, 1.5. Okay. And if you're very aggressive and if you want to invest some dollars into your firm in order to grow it, then you're going to, maybe have to hire 3 or 4 family service counselors per funeral director that you have. Again, I'm very proud from a financial standpoint to know that we're up 40% for the year. However, I think we could do much better. And so really, I think that on our pre-arrangement side, we had, I kind of got excited about one of our family service counselors. She really understood what we're doing and how she's doing it. And she had a phenomenal month. But if you are trained and coach well, and Keith, that's one of the things that you do extremely well, is for us, you help people to understand the dynamics of pre-arrangements. You help them to overcome the objectives, okay, and you help them to inform families. A lot of times people think we're selling. We're not selling. We're resolving a problem. We're resolving a problem of the future. The problem of the future is that if daddy died and you walk into the funeral home and there's no money in place, there's no arrangements in place, then it's a disaster. So what
Yes.
you want to do is you want to help these people out as much as you possibly can. And one of the things about it is for Keith. I've known Keith now, I would say approximately 15 years, and he's been telling the same story to me. But when he told me the same story, really back in 2006, that's where we started. In 2006, when I met Keith at a national convention, he was telling me about what he does, and I said, and I didn't understand it. And I was new to the industry. I didn't understand it, but today I do. Okay, and the lights on, and I just think that every funeral home, you should have a strong prearranged team in place, and definitely utilizing the technology that Keith has available. Okay, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Mr. Dave, because it's very important that you said something. For every 100 at-need funerals, we need to have a minimum of 100 pre-need funerals planned. And I say this, even in the arrangement conference itself, if you average 3 people in the arrangement conference, just in your arrangement conference alone, you have your next pre-arrangement. It's right there. And I think that we as a profession, what you just said is so important. And I always say this to our funeral home owners and cemetery owners across the country. Isn't it easier to go to your file and get that family who just called you and had a death, and you're not concerned about the revenue because it's already taken care of in a prearrangement, versus having to sit with the family and the family's trying to figure out how they're going to fund their funeral at the time of death. So one of the things I like that you said, our family service counselors, those funeral advisors, all those out there being public relation, remember those people on your staff are out there helping families have a funding vehicle that's tied to the local funeral home. I want to stress that to everybody, tied to the local funeral home. I say this all over the country. If they're not in your file, they're not your family. They're
That's
up for
correct.
grabs. So it's up to you, and it's imperative that you, as a funeral owner, a cemetery owner, make sure you're educating your community. Make sure you have family service counselors out there, and make sure, this is very important what Mr. Dave just said, have a budget for marketing yourself. Have something where you can actually reach out to your community. Okay, I know there's 2 doors to a funeral home. I know the back door pays the bills, but the front door keeps you in business. So I just want you guys to know that, because those people, so
You know,
huge.
and then on Keith, as far as on the advertising dollars, they have to understand there's 2 things. There's advertising dollars and there's marketing dollars, and those are 2 separate ones. But you have to have it for the funeral home, but you also be able to, you have to drive traffic. Now, one of the things that's also that's phenomenal with the database management system that's in place is that that all of these families, we have their name, their address, we know have the date of birth, and so we get a death call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's just say it's James Smith. Okay, then we can look on our file real quick and see if James Smith prearranged with us, and we know if it's a pre-need or if it's an at-need, and then that way we can begin to service them in advance. We already know what we're working with, but also I think is that. From a funeral director standpoint, I think having a family service counselor in the room to begin the aftercare, I see great value in that, having a connection, because we as the funeral directors, we are out trying to take care of the at-need side of the business, and we may have to leave the room, and we're busy doing our 150 tasks that we have to make sure that this funeral service is conducted. But after the service is over with, we begin to work with another at-need family. But that prearranged counselor or that aftercare counselor, or whatever title that you have at your organization, continue keeping a rapport with that family. I think that's so important. And then and Keith, and that's one of the things is that's marketing dollars that funeral directors need to really spend money in order to, not funeral directors, but funeral home owners, to make sure that they have some marketing dollars for their prearranged teams.
Okay, that's very good. But let me ask you this question. Now that we have COVID-19, the pandemic, where do you see the market moving now, and how important is it that funeral homes and cemeteries deal with their local banks, their local community, making sure they get the best thing? Because obviously we're not going to go back to as it was normally, but there's going to be some normal things. But how are we going to move forward with this, after this pandemic, and we get all these restrictions lifted and we're back in business?
Well, I think that we got some advantages, some opportunities, and then we also have some threats. First of all, the opportunity is that many families want to get back to tradition. They see the importance of ceremony, and we have to make sure that we add ceremony to every service, because the families are already rejecting what we have now, limited services. So they're letting us know, the families, the communities all across America are letting us know, we want ceremony, we want ceremony, we want ceremony. Okay, so this is the very best time for funeral homes to simply say, we heard you, public, we're going to make sure that ceremony is a part of everything that we have. There's also the threat. The threat is that there's a group that's going to simply say, well, I didn't want a funeral anyway. I don't really need the funeral home. Just, the old saying is, just throw me in the backyard in a pine box. Just cremate me. But we have to make sure that we tell our story to make sure that those that the family understand that the funeral is for the living and not so much for the dead. But so we got to keep telling our story and why we do what we do. And also, it's we may have some similarities in the church, because now all of a sudden, you have a church. We can't go to church as we once did. So the churches are going to be faced with the same things as the funeral homes. It's some comparisons there. So, but we have to keep the religious component as well as the ceremony component as a part of what we do for us to be significant into the future. Now, when you mention about banking and everything here, because I know a lot of funeral homes may be challenging. A funeral home in New York, Chicago, Detroit may be facing something totally different than I'm facing here in Houston. So, for example, the COVID-19, I have not seen many cases. I think at this current time, we've only had 3 cases in the past 2 weeks. We're up 40% without COVID-19. This is just organic growth. People that are dying of natural causes that's calling our funeral home and that we're serving. But those funeral homes that are on the front lines dealing with a surplus of deaths, oh, my heart goes out to you. And I just want you to do everything that you possibly can to help those families, but also keep yourselves safe. There's a lot of negative news that has taken place, especially when it comes down to capacity. But it's tough. This is something that none of us have ever faced before, this pandemic. And so if your funeral home always did 100 calls, and then all of a sudden you got 200 calls, then that's tough. That's challenging. And so there's a lot of criticism that's out there talking about what a funeral home should do and should have not did. I hear the word greed. But I think the funeral professionals that are out there that is accepting the calls is doing whatever they can to assist those families and to try to provide the services. But I think all of us would have a problem if our caseload increased by 50% in a 2-month period. Okay, I don't care where you are, what funeral home you are in America, that's going to be a problem. For those funeral homes that have adapted and been on the front line, you've been the greatest last responders that's been out there to be able to help these families. Now, the COVID-19 families are, they're not able to go into the hospitals, they're not able to go into the nursing homes, and they're not able to say goodbye. And so so the families are counting on the funeral homes to be able to let us see our loved one, let us say goodbye. And I just think that during this pandemic, that the funeral profession has really stepped up, and my heart goes out to places such as New York and New Jersey, now Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit, where you're just getting overload. So hang in there, funeral directors. My heart goes out to you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. one of the things that we've been doing with these interviews is explain to people, we know that the media has given the first responders a lot of play and a lot of airtime. We want to make sure that we give the last responders, all of you, we thank you for your service. We thank you for what you're doing, both the cemetery, the funeral homes, the crematories. Thank you for being the best part of America. I call you guys the invisible hands because of what you guys do
Yes.
every single day. It is not just because of pandemic. We do this all the time. We have the American heritage in our hands, and we don't take this lightly. When you choose one of our firms or the cemetery, we thank you on behalf of all of us in our profession. We thank each family for choosing us and thank you for the privilege of serving you. We really do thank you. Also, Mr. Dave, talking about finances and things like that and building your brand, things like that, and trying to secure revenue. Also, I know that you present cars, limos, and hearses. And I know a lot of people across the country, if they have a brand new firm, what are some of the things that you do with the local bank and also helping people secure vehicles and other things that they would need to make sure that their particular funeral home is optimal, running very well?
Okay. Well, thanks, Keith. As far as having, what's most important is that you have to have your financials in order. Okay, you need to know where you stand as a funeral home owner on a day-to-day basis. So, for example, it's we're going to say it's May. It's May. So so you should have already completed your tax returns for 2019, and you should have your first quarter financials for 2020. You have to always know where you stand financially. Okay, that's very key. Now, one of the things that my success has never been doing business with the big banks, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. I do business with a local bank. I call it relationship banking. You have to go in and you have to establish yourself. I have a bank that I do business with in every city that I have a funeral home in, because I try to hire people that work within the local community and I bank within that local community. And so if you're trying to raise funds or for capital improvements or acquisitions or whatever it may be doing, it's pretty much doing business with a local bank where somebody you can look eye to eye to and you can tell your story. I found that to be very successful. I've never gotten $1 from a big bank. All of my banks has been community-based businesses, because the funeral home is a community-based business. Okay, and so you do business within your community, and I think it'll make a difference. Now, as far as the automobile side of the business, is that we have a large fleet of cars, hearses, and limousines, and so when I am ready to release those to the marketplace, instead of trading in the vehicles, then I'm giving funeral home owners across America the opportunity to be able to get a late model car or Ford's hearse or limousine at a greatly reduced price. So these are automobiles within my fleet, and so now most of the time I try to sell it for at least $10,000 below what the retail market can offer. But the problem is that most of the people are not positioned to be able to take advantage of the opportunity. It's because you don't have a banking relationship, that you're going to go to the dealership and just say you're going to buy a used coach for $40,000 when you could have bought the same used coach for $30,000. That you're willing to spend $10,000 more to go to the dealership because he provides you with a easier processing of credit, okay, at a higher interest rate. Whereas if you establish that relationship at your bank, you can get a lower interest rate and you can buy that vehicle at a reduced price, which will help you to have more dollars to the bottom line. Now, when you're going out and buying a new car, coach or limousine, now, of course, these vehicles are $100,000 plus, and it's keep that vehicle. You're going to keep that vehicle 5 with the Joneses. I'm not going to try to go out and buy 20 20 automobiles or anything from here. One of the things that I did, I think one of the greatest mistakes that I've ever made when it come down to fleet, in 2016, we purchased 17 2016 vehicles at one time. And I think that was, we had the most modern fleet in one of our markets. We looked very, very good. However, I think by you buying fleet throughout every year, then you can keep your fleet modern versus trying to buy 100% of your fleet at one time. And so the reduced cost at the end of the lease terms, having a favorable buyout, and that's what I've done. I'm just negotiating well on the cost savings, and then I'm passing some of those savings on to the independent funeral homes. Okay, Keith, I remember when I started in this business in 2003. In 2003, I didn't even own a coach. I didn't own a limousine. I didn't have a van. I didn't have any. And that was a sure that you have a automobile and you just pay for transportation. It cost me $800 to get a coach it was a 1979 coach that I needed in 2003. And he gave me the opportunity. So what I'm trying to do, I think I've been very successful in my business model, and I'm trying to help some of the other independents, okay, that can take advantage of these opportunities if you are financially prepared. Now, one of the other things is for us, even when it comes down to buying caskets, most of the funeral homes are buying caskets one casket at a time. Well, you're going to pay the highest possible cost when buying one casket at a time. So I've went to some of the national distributors and I've been able to buy by the truckload. So the majority of the time, I'm going to buy a minimum of 60 caskets or 64 caskets up to 113 caskets. And then I've even went to one of my manufacturers in Mexico, and we go out to Mexico and we're designing caskets, and we have our own design, and and that's 113 caskets to the truckload that we're bringing to the United States. So no matter if you're getting your caskets in North America or China or wherever it may be. But I think really as for us, there's enough manufacturers here in North America that we can buy products here versus trying to go overseas. And if we support our national distributors and manufacturers, it's going to create jobs within the North American market. So now when I say North America, I deal with 3 regions in North America: Canada, America, and Mexico. Canada, America, and Mexico. That's North America. And so that's my focus going forward into 2021, is to have solid relationships with North American manufacturers.
Wow. You are giving a lot of valuable information. Everyone, if you need to contact Mr. Alan Dave, there's a website, his email's here. You can contact him by his phone number. I do believe that a lot of us in this profession who have not been to any of the conventions, have not got any of the education that's out here that's available to everyone, have not had the opportunity to go to our school that we have, the university. I think all these relationships that we've got garnered, Mr. Dave, are important. So if you are not part of a national association, I'm going to encourage you. ICCFA, NFD, National Funeral Directors Association, also the NFDMA, National Funeral Directors Association, Mortuary Association, CANA, Cremation Association of North America. Please avail yourself of the education, the opportunities. There's even an educational foundation that we have. I want you to know that there is a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge. There are people out here that will assist you and help you to make sure that your firm, as we move through this pandemic, is on the map. So you really need to do this and understand that. And Mr. Dave, I have a question for you. Where do you see our profession going in the next 3 to 5 years, 10 years and beyond? Where do you see us going because of, technology and the pandemic? Where do you see us going?
Well, first of all, this monster has been with us for some time. It's called cremation. But cremation doesn't have to be bad if you turn it into something good. And so when I started my business in 2003, I named my funeral home Alan Day Funeral Directors and Cremation Tribute Center. That was the name of it, Allendale Funeral Directors and Cremation Tribute Center. Cremation was a part of my original plan, and today I'm being rewarded for it. So with those families that's choosing cremation, it's going to steady grow. So you have to be able to give the ceremonial component of cremation, and that's simply, as I ask these two questions off to the top when I'm talking to a family, would you like to have a traditional funeral followed by burial, or a traditional funeral followed by cremation? And so that traditional funeral followed by cremation, you have to add the ceremony. You're doing the same job, and you don't have to discount that job. The only thing that's different, you're not going to the cemetery, you're going to the crematory. And I see so many families, or funeral professionals rather, is discounting the professional services of the cremation against the funeral. And I think you're making some mistakes there. Your costs associated with producing a traditional funeral and producing a traditional cremation are the same cost. You're just not going to the cemetery, or you're going to the crematorium. So you want to definitely work on your model into the future through 2021 through 2025. And then if you look at the Kena statistical numbers, it's simply saying that, we're going to be growing year over year or annually in cremation. And so what will your funeral home look like in the year 2030? In the year 2030, they're predicting that we're going to be at 70% cremation. So that means only 3 out of 10 is going to the cemetery, and 7 out of 10 is going to the crematorium. So you need to develop sound business practices, family options for servicing those cremation families, because I think that's gonna be very key to the future there.
Excellent. Very, very good. Also, one of the things I'd like to ask you, what is one of the things that you enjoy most about our profession, and what gets you up every morning? I mean, what's your, like, this is my go-to, this is what I do. Well, what do you enjoy, and what's your get up and go? And like you said, you have to have a passion, you have to have skill, but what is your real area that you say, this is why I do what I do?
Well, each day I begin, because it's not a job per se. I think that's helped it out. I don't look at it as a job. This is my profession. This is what I do. Now, as a business owner, I have to look at it from a revenue standpoint, making sure that I'm able to create the revenue in order to support the business practices. But I enjoy helping people. I enjoy resolving simplicity or complex problems. I want to make sure that we create a ceremonial event for their loved one. Okay, and I just don't want it to be something plain and simple. So every time I just look at it as far as discovering the essence of one's life. Tell me about your dad. Tell me about it. Who was he? What did he do? Okay, and then having that conversation, I can create a more meaningful funeral celebration. The last thing I want to do is to have cookie cutter type funerals and everything from that standpoint. And it's not all about the casket. You can take the most expensive casket or the least expensive casket. I create ceremony, and I create beautiful presentations that people find of value, and they're willing to pay for the value. Okay, so you have to reinvest into your facilities. You have to reinvest into your training and education. I enjoy what I do in this profession. So when I wake up each day, I look at it as far as, how am I going to help this family today? The unknowns, because that's what we do. Every day we start over with an unknown. We go to bed and we're waking up, and then you go to your firm and you have 3 or 4 death calls overnight. How are you going to assist those families? So really key is that I have a passion for helping people, and I'll give it my very best each and every day. But as a businessman, then I have to look at it as far as, how can I provide the greatest level of service at the least cost amount of revenue. So I'm doing both in balance and books and everything from that standpoint. But what I do each and every day is, I know where I stand financially. I know how much money is in the bank. I know what my EBITDA is. I know what my taxes are. I know what my costs of doing business are. I know where I stand each and every week. And I think that's been my greatest asset, whereas I can go to any financial institution and get whatever I want or whatever I need simply because I understand the economics of dollars within my business.
Excellent. So you use the word EBITDA, and I want to make sure everybody understands this because that's a valuable piece of information. And I don't want to skip over that because I think a lot of people don't know these things. And I want to make sure that our funeral home and cemetery owners understand that. Please explain EBITDA to people so they understand the real concept of what you're talking about.
Well, we're going to get very, very complex when we go into accounting and everything from this standpoint here. And so, but what I think that's it's two people that you have to have if you're a funeral home owner. It's two people that you want to have on your staff. Number one, you want to have a great attorney, and you want to have a great CPA. Your CPA will take care of your financials. So I have a wonderful CFO for my firm that's really brought me to the forefront of being able to be in position to be able to take advantage of opportunities. You can't take advantage of opportunities if you don't know what your dollars are. So before I go in, we take this into an accounting course. I think that that if you just a funeral home owner, you need a full-time CPA at your firm that can keep up with all of your financials, and I promise you it will pay for itself.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, you just gave some people some valuable information. I think it's very, very good. And it's a beautiful thing. So, more importantly, and I thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you and the relationship that we have and helping families in the community. One of the things I would like to ask you, knowing that the educational background, how important for you going to the conventions, going to the different trade shows and different things, how important is that to you on, knowing what's happening, knowing the pulse of the profession, what's happening out there, how important that is to you, and how important should it be to other people in our profession on why they should get involved with all of our conferences, whether they're going to be in person now or even online? Why do you think it's important?
What I think as far as getting involved with the educational components within the organizations are very important. For example, I attended my first national convention in 2003, and it's like, wow, this is big, this is huge. I have never missed a national convention. I go to at least 3 national conventions or some type of educational component annually. Okay, so I set aside dollars within my budget to make sure that I'm able to attend at least 2 conventions and 1 other educational opportunity that's out there, no matter what organization is hosting it. Now, one of the things is for us, this is kind of personal, is in 2003 when I graduated from mortuary school. There was a gentleman by the name of Todd Beck, which was the president of our the Commonwealth Institute of Mortuary Service of Funeral Services here in Houston, Texas. And I asked him, I said, what do I do next to get further information and further education? And he introduced me to ICCFA University. So I went to ICCFA University in the summer of 2003, and it's created my blueprints. The university really taught me everything that I'm doing today, and then connected me with the top people within every organization. I can tell you today, I can possibly pick up my cell phone and talk to every CFO, CEO of every corporation in America with a telephone call. I am known to these people. I'm known to within the circle, and I built sound relationships. And so that's very important because it helps with you when you establish a relationship with the people that are making the decisions. They have mentored me, and that's what I've done is I've had great mentorship, and you get that by going to these organizations and going to the national convention, okay, and spending time in the classroom and spending time following up after the convention is over with and having conversations, okay, and you talk uniquely about your funeral home, what opportunities you're trying to take advantage of, working out your discounts, you're buying discount, everything that you possibly can. I think those relationships at the conventions are priceless, absolutely priceless. And then one of the things, ICCFA University, if it's not canceled, we're going to be in Atlanta, Georgia in 2020. So everybody that's kind of on the East Coast within 200 miles of Atlanta, Georgia, I definitely welcome you to ICCFA University in July, the third week of July. And I think that's going to be a great opportunity. You got to learn the business side of it. You got to learn all of it. When you go to the funeral home, you got the funerals, you got the cemetery, you got the memorialization, you got, just so much. This is very big, but within every business, you still have accounting. You have HR, you got policies, you got procedures. You got to run your funeral home as if it's a business. The family-owned businesses must run their businesses as a business. There's no favoritism. You got to run your business as a business if you're to succeed.
Wow. You said a lot there. The bottom line really is the bottom line. Because if it doesn't go to the bottom line, we're all in trouble. And obviously, we see that happen across the United States right now with a lot of
Keith, let me just jump up. You said something here, the bottom line is that I try to mentor quite a few people that reach out to me, and I try to help as many as I possibly can. And I'm just going to use this, not calling a name, but one funeral home, and he was conducting about 300 funerals per year, 300 funerals per year, and he never had any money. And I didn't understand that. But we started our relationship. He used to tell me hey, Alan, I got 6 funerals this weekend, and I got 5 funerals this week. I sold this casket, I sold that casket, and everything from that standpoint here. And the mindset that he was telling me in this, I thought, well, you're doing very great. But when I came to talking about how much money was left within his organization, then he seemed to always struggle. And I think the business side of what we're doing is really understanding all of the costs, your fixed costs, your flexible costs. Okay, just understanding everything. The key to success in this business, to create generational wealth if you're an owner, to make sure that you're able to take care of the future, your children and your grandchildren, is that you got to make sure that you do the things today to better it for them for tomorrow. Now, I have 3 children, 3 adult children, okay, and none of my children have any interest in this business whatsoever. So most likely, and you have to work on your succession plan. What's your succession plan? What's your end game? So currently, my end game is, since none of my children are interested in this, something is to happen to me, well, my instructions are sell it to the next best guy that would like to own the Island Day brand. And so you have to have a succession plan. I've seen too many funeral homes owners die without a succession plan, and I've seen them retire without a succession plan. And those are definitely buying opportunities within our acquisitions, taking advantage of those. But really, do you really understand the value of your funeral home? Just because you do 300 calls, 500 calls, or even 1,000 calls, if you don't understand the value of your firm, okay, then it's a goodwill number that you're saying, well, I would like to sell my funeral home and this is what I like to sell for. But if you can't prove the financial components of it, then it's just wishful thinking. And that's what I would like to see, is more funeral professionals spend time on the economics of running their business. I see many work within their business, but I need some funeral home owners to work on their business, and they'll be able to afford to hire people to work within their business, and then it'll be a better business overall.
Wow. Knowing that you're from Houston, Texas, I will say, Houston, we have a problem. Now the problem, and then the real thing is, what you just said is so big. We have way too many of our funeral home owners, our cemetery owners, a lot of people in the crematory business. They are working in their business, not on their business. As we move forward, we should bring some of these tools to them. Succession planning. We should bring some anchors to talk about these things so that people can actually get this information. It's all available to everyone. Never say that you cannot make it, because information is available. Mr. Dave just told you, you have to build good relationships with your local banker. You have to build relationship with people within the profession. Our industry has a lot of people that's willing to reach out to you and help you. We're all here to serve. More importantly, I just want Mr. Dave to know I am honored. I am also humbled to be able to interview you, because this is something that you and I, we have a good relationship, and I'm just proud to know you. You're a call away. I know sometimes you and I, we play phone tag, but we eventually do get a hold of each other. But more importantly, what you're doing, not only in the Houston market, but for our profession at large, I salute you as being a general. Now I'm going to move into questions. If there's any questions out there in the webinar world, if you have any questions in reference to the cemetery, the funeral home, the pets, any question at all, please let us know if you have a question. I know that we're on the Alan Dave's Facebook page. We're on Periscope. We're on Legend. We're on different platforms. Also, I want you guys to know this has been powered by Premier Specialty Markets, Vice President Kenneth P. Floyd. This has also been sponsored by Mogul Clients, who does all the technology, thing rolling, and also Legend Cemetery Funeral Services, the training and the consulting that we do across the country. We will know that. We will follow back up for replay. So anybody who wants to follow back up for the replay, we want you guys to know that this will be replayed on the different brands. Mr. Dave, do you have a LinkedIn account also?
Well, no, I do not have a LinkedIn account. Okay,
okay.
That's one that's not there.
Okay, no problem. Because one of the things that we like to do is just to make sure everybody have access to you, access to your Facebook page, access to your website. Please, everyone, let Mr. Dave know by leaving comments, calling them up, just get some tad bits of information. And if you all like to have a group session where you want to get together, where we can do this and really help educate you guys on technology, on the different things that we're doing, we'll be more than happy to do that. Again, Mr. Dave, I want to thank you. Here's the number, 713-480-2966. Again, 713-480-2966. Mr. Alan Dave, I want again to let you guys know we are here to serve you and your community. Thank you again for another session of Meet Your Local Funeral Home Owner. And Mr. Dave, one of the things I'd like to do in the future, we're also going to start doing this. We're going to introduce your family service counselors to the community. We're going to do each one of them at a time and do the same thing. So people in the community will get to know people who work in different firms in their local neighborhood, right with their Facebook page and your funeral home page, so that people know that they actually represent you out in the community. And I think this would be a great way for us to introduce them. I know in the past, you remember when you first started a job and the local newspaper says, hey, this person had a new job, and you go and see all the people. Well, we want to do that now through Facebook and different platforms, so that everybody know that we're moving to streaming. I've always been into technology, helping firms and cemeteries and funeral homes really touch people who normally don't even walk into our facility. And now everyone gets the opportunity to look inside and say, I had opportunity to meet the local funeral home owner.
That's correct. That's great, Keith. It's been a great honor. Thank you for inviting me to speak this morning, and hopefully I've said something significant to touch someone in one way. One of the things about it, though, is I do have an open door. You can reach out to me. I want to provide as many resources as I possibly can, because, see, somebody went down this path before me, and now they kicked the door open, and I'm going through that door because of a lot of legend funeral directors and funeral home owners over the course of the last 100 years. Now, Alan Dave is benefiting today in 2020 for the funeral directors that went before me and the funeral home owners. What I want to do is I want to give back to the younger generation, the 40-40 on the group that's out there, and to be able to mentor you and show you how to do some things here. I recently received a telephone call that stated that, hey, Alan, I have $50 million that I want to invest into the death care industry. Do you know any people that can take advantage of this? And I simply said, yes, I know many people that need resources and need everything here. And so I'm just going to tell each and every one of you, when it comes down to lending, to ask for $1 million, to ask for $2 million, to ask for $100,000, it's the same process. It's the same process no matter what your number is. So get your financial records together. Know where you stand at the end of each month. Know where you stand at the end of each quarter. Financials are key. Very, very important. And you cannot grow your firms without having sound financial records.
Awesome, man. This was awesome. And again, I want to let you guys know this episode, this session, powered by Premier Specialty Markets, Vice President Timothy Floyd, Legend Cemetery Funeral Services, Mogul Clients, and Alan Dave Brand in Houston, Texas. We are signing off. Please wait there, Mr. Dave. After this ending, we will now allow for our sponsors to be saluted.